Finally, think great thoughts about challenges. How we think about the difficulties and the adversities that come into our life really shape us. James says some very hard words, but they're said to a group of people that are in a lot worse shape than most of us. First book written in the New Testament. It says to verse 1 of James chapter 1, it's to those scattered abroad. They're Jewish Christians, and they've come to know Christ, and a lot of people are becoming kind of human torches, and persecution has hit. And some people said, you know, I believe Jesus is the Messiah. And the parents said, guess what? You're no longer my son. You're no longer my daughter. And now you don't have an inheritance. You don't have a place to live. And the persecution came, and they're spread out. And they've lost home. They've lost relationships. They've lost their jobs. They've lost their companies. Everything, they have a broken world. It is not working. It's shattered. Their financial security, their relational security, everything that helps us stay sort of solid is gone. So what would God say to a group of people like that? Consider it. The word is reckon. Think thoughtfully. Ponder. Consider it pure or all joy. What? When you encounter various kinds of trials. The word for various trials there has the idea of those things that come from the outside. Those circumstances. Uncontrollable things. Consider it. Choose, literally. Choose to consider it joy when adversity and difficulty comes into your life. And you're thinking, why? Knowing. And the word for knowing here, circle it if you would. It's not an intellectual knowledge. There's two words in the New Testament for knowing. One has to do with knowing by way of experience. The other is an intellectual, 2 + 2 is 4. I know that's true. This is knowing by way of experience. Knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let or allow endurance to have its perfect result, that you may be perfect or mature. I like the version you have right there. Perfect or mature and complete, lacking in nothing. James would say to a group of people who, guess what? In our vernacular, their marriage broke up. They had a grandchild commit suicide. They financially thought everything would be okay, but now, wow, some things really went in a way that, and you're in a situation where you're thinking, I never dreamed I'd be where I am now. I ran into 2 people in the last week who've been married over 30 years whose mate walked out on them. Broken world experience. How do you respond to that? How do you respond to the inner struggles and the pressures and the sick of being loneliness and wanting a mate and crying out to God and it's not there? Or a problem in a marriage that, God, I know divorce isn't right, I know divorce isn't right, I know that's an option, but man, this stinks. This stinks. Help, help, help. Or working on a business or working on an issue. No matter what happens, it just won't come together. What do? You choose to think about it biblically. What we tend to do is say, well, you know what? I'm like this because what my mom and dad did. Or actually, couldn't be my dad because he left us when I was 2. Or I'm like this because, that guy was my boss. I'll tell you what. When they did that guy is such a jerk. And we have people who live with a blame, shame, or victim mentality, and it's everybody else's fault. And you know how you think great thoughts about your adversity, your challenge? I choose, because God is in control, I choose to consider this pure or unmitigated joy. A feeling? No, it's a choice. Why? Because what I know is that God, being all-knowing, good, wise, and powerful, what I know for sure is this adversity is going to do something, and this testing is going to produce endurance. Like a weightlifter, you put the weights on, and you start doing the dips. And like a weightlifter, if you keep doing that, guess what's going to happen? Over time, those muscle fibers begin to split. Any of you guys that have lifted weights. And that's why you rest the second day, then it heals. And how's it heal? Stronger. God brings weights into your life sovereignly, lovingly, wisely. Internal weights, relational weights, financial weights, family weights. Painful things into your life. It's a fallen world. He allows them to happen, but he's going to work. Will make all the difference. Substitute healthy things, or you can say, I'm going to make a choice. I choose to consider this all joy because God is going to produce endurance, and endurance does something to a man or a woman, something to their character. I'm going to let God use this to make me more and more like his son so that I am perfect, mature, teleos, so I can fulfill the design that God ultimately wants of me. I'm going to become more and more like Jesus through this suffering. Hebrews 5. Although he was a son, speaking of Jesus, although he was a son, he learned obedience through the things which he suffered. Rather than saying, and people will see more of Jesus in your life, eternal, family, financial, health. They'll see more of Jesus did it all. Our future, our path, because you're a product of your thought life. How do you get there? Let me go to go package. And they have, 30 topics. You memorize 2 verses. And then I just started making up topics. You do have to, and then you'll grow overwhelming, and some of you get a little arrogant. You get a few hundred verses, and you'll think, oh, wow. And then God will bring some humbling things into your life, and you'll realize, and as God really speaks to you, you write it down and you memorize it, and you use those little times where you're kind of bored. I do listen to worship, but sometimes just thoughts. What if you just took these 7 areas? What if you took these 7 areas that I gave you and the single verse that I gave you, and you wrote, think Romans 11:33, and you wrote it down, and you made 7 cards, and in the next couple weeks, you just started in on them and just read them over and begin to think. And then add kind of little thoughts of your own on the back of the card about thinking great thoughts. You know what had happened? Wise behavior, which leads to fruit. Second, actually, is listen to great music. It's interesting. I'm reading Walk. I've done it, and Teresa and I thought, let's kind of go back and read through the Daily Walk Bible. And so we thought, well, we're grandparents, so we're thinking like grandparents. So we got a Daily Walk Bible for all of our kids and all their wives and everybody. And so I don't know if they're all doing it, but at least theoretically we can be moving through the Bible together, and it just feels warm and ooey-gooey in this grandfather's heart, just right here, And so it's interesting, though, that I'm reading through Moses after all the turmoil, and when he wanted the people, the second generation after they blew it. Did you notice what happened, what God told him to do? God said, Moses, round 1 they didn't do so well. This is a very loose translation of that phrase. But, we need to do better this time. So what I want you to do is I want you, after you review it, put it into a song. And we have the Song of Moses. And in my Bible, it's pretty small print, but it's 3 or 4 columns. He put the entire history of Israel and the greatness of God, redemption and deliverance. I don't think there's anything probably that is an easier way or to also get good things in your mind. And take those walks in nature and hear God's voice. One of the things that I've done that's been very helpful, memorizing random scriptures can be very helpful, but I've tried to look inside my heart and my life and my family, and I realize I've got a half a dozen issues, Maybe I've got 12, but I've only learned about 6 or 7 so far. And they're reoccurring. I get overextended. Why? Well, down deep I want to prove myself. I don't believe God really loves me. Okay. Well, you can just keep being a workaholic, or you can keep pleasing people, and you can just have a quiet time over here and not make the connection. And so what I finally did years ago, I said, something? This is the truth I need. And so I wrote down, I feel compelled to please people, to be on the go, to make this happen because I definitely get in your eyes, period. Zephaniah 3:16 on the other end. And just take, what are the issues in your life? Is it, temptation with lust? Memorize a verse. Is it temptation with the media? But take the area where you struggle, and we all do, and write out your bad things. Write stop. Mine's very artistic. Truth. And what you train your mind, because you read that one, you say stop, when unconsciously those thoughts come. The stop will come, and then God will bring the verse to mind, and you can break out of destructive habits. Your life can totally change. Does it take time? Yeah. Does it take work? Yes. Take focus? Absolutely. Take discipline? Mm-hmm. Those are like fruits of the Spirit, Think great thoughts, and you will experience a great God and a great life.
Today, and as we close today's program, I gave you some very specific ways to learn to think great thoughts. And what I have to tell you is there is no little shortcut. There is no magic bullet. There's not a pill that you can take that will cause you to think great thoughts. It will require energy and discipline and a plan and a lot of effort. But here's what I want you to know. I meet people after 25 years as a pastor that to the Bible. They long to be a better parent. They long to maybe lose some weight and get in shape. They long to deal with an anger issue. And they focus on either their feelings or their behavior, and they try and try and try and try, and they do not see sustained, lasting change. Here's what I want to tell you. Great Christians change their thinking first. And so that little list I gave you, it won't be easy, but identify the one area where you know God wants you to change. Go to the Scripture and say, what's a passage, what's a promise, like I shared. I gave you 4 or 5 or 6 of them, and you can go to the website and download those if you want them. But go to the website and say, God, what area? Is it my thinking about you, about myself, about others? Write that on a verse, and write down how you think negatively, and then on the back of that, write the verse. Begin to read that over. For others, it's taking walks in a park. It's seeing nature. You will be the product of your thought life. Great Christians think great thoughts. Are you willing to take that challenge? Are you willing to say, I'm going to discipline, I'm going to take the time, the energy, and the effort to begin to change what goes in my mind and what I think about? In this next broadcast, we're going to learn the role of reading great books and putting new things into your mind that will start this process in ways like you never dreamed. I hope you join me.